Mom tried to force reconcile me with my sister, but it backfired. Background: I started dating my brother's best friend when I was 16. We were together until I graduated high school when he proposed and I rejected it. There was a lot of drama, with my family asking me to reconsider because we could have a long engagement or make a promise to reconcile. My relationship with my brother 36 suffered for a while, but the one with my sister 32 never recovered. She was sure my ex was the best fit for me, and it became unbearable when she started dating my ex's brother. My ex was invited everywhere by my siblings, even to some family holidays, but I didn't say anything since he was their friend too. That is, until my sister started to push for us to get back together. My sister did everything from trying to get us on blind dates to making us share a room during holidays. No matter the occasion, my ex was invited to it. After a while, I had enough and asked my parents to intervene. They were clear with my siblings and stopped inviting my ex to things or allowing him to tag along so much. It was slightly better, but while my brother backed off, my sister didn't. It all came to a head when I met my husband during a semester abroad. He was from another university, but in the same country, and we just clicked. It was magical for me, and we got engaged after dating for a year. My family was very happy for me, except my sister. She kept insisting I was in the honeymoon phase and would grow out of it. I clearly didn't, and after many, I can't express enough how many fights and attempts to reunite me with my ex, I simply let her know if she pulled anything again, I would stop talking to her. What does she do after that morning? She makes me her mo and requests that I spend all my time with the bridal party, aka my ex, and sets one of her friends as my husband's date. We didn't realize until we were at the reception that the poor girl tried to make a pass at my husband. My sister said that since we are not married, it was okay to explore things with other people. I left the party, and the next day I spoke with my parents and brother, explaining that while I won't make them choose, I will not talk to my sister ever again, and if they try to fix stuff between us, I will simply cut contact with them too. My mom was devastated and tried to negotiate, but my dad and brother said they would respect my decision, and apart from 2 attempts from my mom, I haven't spoken, written, or done anything with my sister in the past 6 years. My sister has tried everything to reconcile with me, from gifts to tantrums. I simply don't talk to her at all. If we are at a family event or dinner, I simply act like she doesn't exist. At first, she made snarky comments or tried to create drama, but since nobody backed her up, she gave up. She did have a meltdown when she was informed she was invited to my wedding, but would not be part of any preparation. My brother says he feels guilty for going along with it for so long, and his relationship with my ex has suffered since then. They still talk, but they are not as close anymore. The issue: my mom's birthday was a couple weeks ago, and I finally announced we were expecting our first child. This is not the first grandchild, but the first granddaughter. Everyone was very happy, except my sister. My mom noted that and asked me for tea the other day. My sixth sense told me not to go, but I wanted to be positive. The first thing I noticed when I arrived was my sister's car, and then as I entered the door, there were my sister, her husband, my ex, and my ex-mother. They wanted to have an intervention since my childish tactic has been around for so long. My ex said that he was just trying to be romantic, but he understands that I couldn't appreciate it. His mom said I was just hurting my sister for wanting the best for me, and she apologized already, so I need to forgive her. I was just sending texts to my family, dad, brother and husband, and looking at my mom in disbelief. My Bill had the balls to tell me I was a hurtful person, and I need to learn how to act like an adult since I'm having a baby now. Then my mom began reading a letter about how hurt she was that her daughters weren't close, how my sister was wrong, but she was well intended, etc. Then my sister read her letter and began crying and telling me basically another version of what the rest did. I said nothing to anybody. I just sat there until my brother arrived. He was angry beyond anything I've ever seen before. He grabbed my stuff and told them all that he was really disappointed and disgusted. We went outside and sat in his car until my dad and husband arrived. By then, I was just sobbing, and he kept saying sorry. I am unsure what happened in there, but I sent everybody except mom an email with my lawyer's number attached and stated, I don't wish to be contacted by any of them ever again, and if they do, I will go to the police. Nobody has contacted me, but I know from my dad that my mom and sister are hysterical. They told him they hope to repair things, and for my sister to be able to be in my baby's life, maybe possibly being a godmother. My dad is staying with my brother at the moment. They support me, but some others in the family don't. I've even had mutual friends call me since they are worried about my sister's well-being and asking me what happened since she is now going by the narrative that my husband is keeping me away from my family. I hate having my business in public, but I did go the public route and posted a long Facebook post about everything that happened. Sister, Bill and ex are being dragged, which, even if it wasn't 100% intended, I feel is deserved. Now, my mom has been inconsolable, which does make me feel bad, but not as bad as she made me feel with her little intervention. I agreed to have a talk with her a couple of days ago and laid the ground rules for any possible future interaction, including therapy, family therapy, clear boundaries, no sharing information about me with my sister, and separate holidays. Most important, if she ever pulls anything like this again, she will for sure be cut off. She feels this is too much, but she is willing to do it. She thought it meant immediate access to baby news, and it is all solved, but I told her it is a process, and she needs to prove she has improved. My dad and brother refuse to talk to my sister, and they keep apologizing for not stopping it earlier. We've forgiven them since they were able to move on and grow. My husband supports whatever I decide, but my mill is unsure if cutting my mom's access to her granddaughter is the way to go, but says it is ultimately my decision. I am torn about what to do with my mom. TLDR, I haven't talked to my sister in 6 years because of her obsession with me and my ex. My mom organized an intervention on her behalf so we could reconcile, and now I am unsure if I even want my mom in my life anymore. Relevant comments by Op in response to a commenter saying Op's sister is unhinged. She got fixated on the idea that we could both be married to brothers and be best friends. In response to another comment, Op talks about her ex not being able to move on almost 20 years later. Almost the same age. The most ridiculous and scary thing is that he still has the mixtape CDs I made him when we were dating. Those things are about 20 years old, and he still holds on to them. In response to a commenter asking if her family is Indian and or religious, I am neither Indian nor from a religious family. My parents were good, nice parents. They thought it was a romantic thing at the beginning, but later realized it wasn't. They encouraged me to go to college and everything. Now I know my dad actually supported me, and my mom might have just played along and had the same beliefs as my sister. My sister had this idea that we would be best friends married to brothers. Some more background info, and a small update, posted to Op's own Reddit page. The edit, I wanted to post but couldn't. I want to thank you for the amount of support and advice you have given so far. I want to give a little more information in my comments, since there are too many for me to answer them all individually. My ex and I broke up when I was 18, and he is 37 now. The reason for our breakup was that I didn't want to get married or engaged. My sister's insistence comes from her fixation on wanting the both of us to marry brothers and be best friends. My mom has always been so nice to my husband, but I am beginning to think it was all a facade, which makes me very sad. My ex has been with people since the breakup. He also has 2 kids with an ex, but he's never been married. My sister says that is a very romantic thing to do since he has only ever wanted to marry me. I should also mention that his obsessive behavior is not only with me. I know from the grapevine that he was very similar to the mother of his children, but now he is refocusing on me because my sister is encouraging it since she needs his help in getting back into my good graces so she can be a good aunt. My brother did start to cut him off when I told my parents I was very uncomfortable with my ex around all the time. I was living away from college, but would visit my family during breaks. He also made a very big effort to make my husband feel welcome, which deteriorated his relationship with my ex even more because he felt betrayed by my brother. Nowadays, my husband is one of my brother's closest friends, and he only speaks with my ex when it is about our nephew, our sister's son, or to not be rude. Both my parents seem to be supportive of me, not wanting to be around my ex so much, but I guess only my dad was in agreement. On the day of the tea party, my mom told him she was making me my favorite tea and sweets, but he couldn't stay since we would have quality time together. My dad left to go hang with my uncle since he thought it was a nice sentiment from my mom. He is very pissed off. My husband tried very hard with my sister when they met, but now he just ignores her and believes she is mentally ill. We don't know if she is or not, but there is no excuse for how she behaves. They invited the ex and his mom because they thought it would be good for me to face the root of my issues with my sister, or at least their official version. Also, we are not Indian or really religious. My husband and I are from the same race. There is also no wealth disparity between my ex and my husband. If there is, it would be in favor of my husband. Lastly, my seals, both my brother's wife and husband's sisters are enraged about the situation. My husband and his sisters will be talking with their mom about her comment. My brother and his wife are considering going to NC permanently with my mom, and in the meantime, they will not allow her to see my nephews for a bit. The more I read, the more I think I might have to go to NC with my mom for the sake of my kid. My husband is heartbroken to think all their interactions were faked, but he says he is even more enraged. She made me cry and doubt I was a good person. I realize there are still countless conversations to have with my family about my mom, but I will definitely be going for a restraining order against my sister and the ex. The proper semi-update. The state of my family so far. I had a conversation with my mother, but she insists she knew best. I am a bad person, and she will be getting grandparents' rights or even custody. I am nothing like what she says, but I still panicked, so we sent her a letter about it. My dad definitely moved out. He told her that he could not sign on her terrorizing his kid. My brother and his wife also decided to go to NC. I know it seems very sudden, but I think I underestimated the level of dissatisfaction I had after the intervention. My husband told them afterward, they had to think very well about what they appreciated and to be kind and receptive to everything. But he would not raise a kid in a toxic environment. Reason 3,270,637. Why I love my husband. My husband is very heartbroken about my mom and her fakeness. He says she will never get anything from him. That is as much as revenge goes here. My husband and sisters talked to my mill about her comment, and made her understand why it was very out of it. As many of you assumed, she was a very loving mom from a loving family. My dad and brother keep apologizing for any role they they played in this. My dad can't believe it went to this point. He says, it is still surreal for him. Regardless, they support me no matter what and say they are willing to help me fight whatever ridiculous fight my mom or sister puts up. Final update, posted to Ops Reddit page. Or I hope it is. I want to thank you for the lovely messages and encouraging words. I decided to post it here, so it wouldn't be deleted like the original was. Things are great and horrible at the same time, but I am trying to remain positive about everything. My brother and his wife sat my nephews down and explained that grandma was ill and tried to hurt Annie Diamond and the little cousin. They explained that grandma would not be part of their lives anymore, but that doesn't mean she doesn't love them. It was really hard, but the kids are smart. They were also told their other aunt is no longer in their lives, but they don't care because they dislike her not because of me alone, but simply because she is not exactly great with them either. My mom lost it when she was informed and started claiming she had rights and would get to see her grandchildren. My dad is looking for a permanent place, but will stay with us until January, mainly due to my brother's mill coming to visit and our having the space. He is really sad, has called divorce lawyers already, moved bank stuff etc. He has been getting countless emails, messages and calls from my mom, but he doesn't reply to anything. The lawyer told him not to block her right now. He considered maybe forgiving her, but I got a huge spike in my blood pressure a couple days after my last post here, because she decided to come to my place with my sister. My sister had never been to my home. My mom knew I didn't want her there, but I guess that doesn't matter anymore. The cleaning lady let them in since she knows my mom, and I haven't had the time to inform her. She was not allowed to come in anymore. I was just coming from some errands, and I saw the car, but this time I didn't get in. I called all of my relatives, and my still husband's sister was the one closer to me. She confronted them, and told them either they should leave, or I should call the police on them for trespassing. They left, and I started feeling bad. We went to the doctor, and they told me all the excitement was not good, and I needed to start relaxing, or it would hurt the baby. My dad went home with my brother, uncle and husband and took every single thing he could think of. My husband says my sister was there too, and she kept screaming at him that he destroyed her family. My dad told my mom and sister they almost unalived the baby, and he also doesn't want to talk to any of them again. My sister kept sending messages to my brother, begging for help, but this is not happening. I am devastated and very sad for my nephew since he is losing so much of his family, because his mother has some wacky ideas, but they are what they are. As per the custody and grandparent rights my mom wants to throw around so much, my lawyer sent her a letter stating, she caused harm to my health and the baby, and if she keeps harassing me, it will become an official legal matter. My brother also sent her a letter about her harassing me. Both mom and sister have refused to go to therapy. They might be mentally ill, but with all of this coming to light, it is obvious they have been in agreement for a long time. I will focus on spending the holidays with my family, being healthy, and going to therapy. Update. Thank you, Reddit family. Hi, I've received some requests for an update and had a little time, so I decided it could be a good fit. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your comments, messages, and well, every piece of advice, because I feel we owe you for being even more paranoid than we were being. A couple people asked me what method we used to know the gender of the baby. I announced it after 20 weeks. The reason for waiting so long is that we have experienced a loss in the past, which we were preparing to announce when it happened, and we wanted to be sure and have a safety feeling about the announcement. Also, we were naive enough to think it would be special for my mom. And you were right. After posting, I handed it to my husband, and he read your messages, comments, and advice for some days. We swiped the house and thankfully found nothing, but we felt extremely unsafe, so we went to a hotel with my dad. But then we realized there was a tracker on my fur baby's vest. He is a very small dog and gets cold a lot, so he has a funny vest. Never in a million years would I have thought of looking there, but we discovered the tracker when my dad walked him around the hotel area, and my sister came and asked him about me and reconciliation. I was really upset, so we decided to move. Thankfully, we can afford it. We are renting at the moment and also renting out our place, so it is not just empty. I used to love that house, but now I feel it is ruined and tainted somehow. Sadly, my parents' house feels the same, and not only for me. We all, my brother, husband, dad, Sil, and even my husband's family changed our numbers, got new electronics, and notified employers, friends, and the police. We also started therapy and family therapy. My dad and brother feel extreme guilt over the situation, even if I have truly forgiven them. But we are healing as a unit. My sister and mom insist they are not wrong, and they don't need therapy. My dad made a new will in which my sister's son gets a trust fund and some inheritance, but my sister gets a token amount. He is truly done with her. I was feeling bad for her, but I decided to focus my energy on my baby. She is here, and we are blessed. It is not the experience I thought of since my mom is not around me anymore. But so many friends and family members have truly surprised us. By the end, we were so paranoid that we started testing some people. We were unsure about telling them I was going into labor. It worked like a charm. We discovered who was still feeding information to my mom and sister and cut them out. The rest understood when we explained the reasoning. My ex, whom my friends now call Bates, went around saying the baby was his because we've been having a torrid affair due to my undying love for him. Nobody believes him anymore, but it made my husband contact Bates' employer and tell him about all the craziness. Long story short, he was put on a suspension pending internal review. I am almost positive he will be fired since they have asked us for more and more information, and they seem really apologetic. My mom has tried to find us, but all the people who know of our location have gone to NC with her. My dad's lawyer sent her a letter stating that, due to her instability, all correspondence will be through lawyers now. It has been us and my dad because I felt so bad for him being alone. He has promised he will be fine, and nothing is my fault, but I still feel awful. He has been the best babysitter, feeder and diaper changer in the universe. My nephews are loving as always, and my dad even got a visit from my sister's son. It came about because she kept making videos threatening to hurt herself if my husband didn't stop alienating her family. So my dad emailed her about seeing her son and told her he would call the police about her threats. So that seems to have stopped it. Lastly, someone brought up the fact that I gave Bates false hope. It can't be further from the truth. I spent years uncomfortable because I thought he would move on. And then after I spoke up and then met my husband, I spent such a long time fighting my sister about it. I had a very long engagement, which is why I married after my sister. I still love my mom and sister, but I choose a healthy life for me and my family over that love. I have discovered a lot of loyalty, love and compassion through this whole thing. As strange as it may seem, I feel lucky that it all exploded. Hopefully, it is not much of a ramble. Big hugs from me. Update a little Bates update. Hi Reddit TLDR. I am happy to report that we are all alive, well, in a new house, and the baby is thriving. And Bates was fired. Longer version. We officially moved into a new house, with my dad moving into the guest house. We had many discussions, both inside and outside of therapy, and we decided that while it would be good for him to be with us, we all still needed our space. We are still renting out the old place, and will be deciding what to do later. My dad has the grandchildren all together about 3 times a week now, but he still has to see my sister's kids separately since she refused to let him take the kid, unless she knew where he lived, which, to be fair, is a normal thing. But considering she is crazy, we don't want her close. My mom complained to the lawyers about how unfair it is that my dad still gets to see all the grandchildren, but there is nothing she can do about it. About a month ago, my dad told me he had a confession, and my stomach started hurting. Dear reader, he pays for my nephews, my sister's schooling and babysitting, which is why she still allows him to see him. He felt so guilty for hiding it, and didn't want to keep secrets. I assured him there was nothing wrong, and to please don't feel bad. On Mother's Day, my dad got an email with a link to an Instagram account in which they made a sad video about my mom, how most of her family has abandoned her, and how much of a saint my sister is for being there for her. It was really pathetic and enraged me, but I just sent it to the lawyer. Dad officially filed for divorce in May, and the process is still ongoing. My mom insists he is wrong, but my dad said he'd rather drink bleach than go back to her, so I think that is final. My brother and husband took my dad out for Father's Day, and had a blast. My sister posted many things that day, but they managed to block my dad from even learning about them, because we wanted him to enjoy them. They also did a camping trip with kids, aka went to a hotel, got a suite, and put a tent in the middle area for the kids and a little tippy for the baby. Honestly, having a baby is one of the best things that have happened to me, and seeing my husband be the amazing father I knew he would be makes me so happy. It is tiring, but we have so much support that I feel grateful beyond anything because I have my rock on my side. My Sills and I now get to have a little calendar for sharing things. All the kids get to do things that are age appropriate, and if they want to, we want to let them all know they do not need to hang out with people they dislike, and that their voices matter. Right now, they are all obsessed with the baby and say they are her protectors, and we get little get-togethers, brunches etc. Honestly, having family time is now a pleasure and not a headache without my sister there. I know this is wrong to say, but she just suckers the positivity out of the room. My Mill also loves having time with the baby and stays in the guest room about once a week. She asked politely and said she didn't want to take the baby for sleepovers or anything. I feel respected and heard by her, and yes, I have broken down sometimes because I miss my mom a lot. I miss the mom I had or thought I had, not the one who told me I would be a terrible mother or was a hateful woman. My therapist says it's a marathon and to focus on the good. Speaking about good, Bates was terminated. Not only that, but his reputation in his industry was not only damaged but nuclear level damaged. So was his brother's. But because Bill is not in an industry that cares as much about reputation, he still has his job, as far as I know. Bates sent me a 12-page, double-sided, single-spaced letter about how hurt he is. I am denying him what's his, and my husband is so threatened by him that he had to go and destroy him professionally because he would not be able to destroy anything else. I said it seemed because I didn't read it. My lawyer did and gave me a summary. I also heard from the grapevine. No, I don't ask people. They just tell me since they know he is stalking me that the mother of his children moved, and he didn't even care and said it was for the best. This man doesn't even care about his kids and wants to play family with his baby and me. Sadly, he won't be homeless or anything because mommy already let him move back in with her, so I doubt he will learn anything from this. Not the flashiest of updates, but just what is. Oh, and my husband burned or donated every single item given to him by my mom or my parents with my dad's blessing. He says life is too short to give her space in his life, even with memories.
Story 2.
Parents canceled my birthday party because of my spoiled younger brother. I'm 20 meters, and has happened when I was 14. I have a brother that's about 6 years younger than me, and he was extra coddled by my parents for having been diagnosed with high-functioning autism when he was 4. But other than that, he seems very normal, just unbelievably spoiled, and he used it to get his way a lot. And by a lot I mean nearly all the time. Anything I had, he also had to have. So that meant we had doubles of almost everything that wasn't shared items. And anything he had that I didn't, he'd rub in my face any way he could. When I was 11, I begged my parents for a 3DS for my 12th birthday. I got one, but then was told to lend it to my brother whenever he wanted it, or else I'd have it taken away. Which it was, a lot. When my aunt found out after seeing my parents forcibly take my 3DS out of my hands to give to my brother on one of her visits, she let loose on them for such blatant favoritism. They returned my 3DS immediately, then blamed me for the situation after my aunt left. But they didn't make me give it to my brother again. Instead, my parents went out a few days later and bought another 3DS as a surprise gift for my brother. On several of mine and other people's birthdays, my brother made a huge fuss because the party wasn't all about him, even going so far as to outright state that he was upset because he wasn't getting any gifts or getting to blow out the candles on the cake. My parents learned the hard way that they couldn't enable my brother the way they'd have liked at those parties, and were actually kicked out of a few for trying. And because of that, other kids at his school stopped inviting him to birthday parties altogether. For me, my birthdays were some of the only days I had that I got to have about me, because otherwise my parents forced my life to revolve around my little brother. And the year prior to when this story took place, my parents ended up paying more attention to him the entire time of my 13th birthday, and even asked me if I'd let my brother blow out my candles for me because he was upset and pouting. I refused it because I wanted to blow out my own candles. They called me a spoiled brat at first, till my aunt intervened and chastised them on their favoritism yet again, and stated how much she had noticed how my brother gets nearly everything between the two of us just because he's autistic. My parents got no support from anyone else there other than my brother, who was still crying because he wasn't getting to blow out my candles. And because he didn't get his way, he tried to outright spit on my cake out of spite. But my awesome aunt thankfully blocked him before he got the chance, then scolded him till he ran to my mom in tears. My parents took a lot of heat from the other adults there, and then promised to never ask me to let my brother blow out my candles again. But they pretty much just went through the motions for rest of the party. My aunt pretty much took over coordinating everything from that point. The following year, a couple of weeks before my birthday, my parents sat me down and told me they were still going to get me some gifts and a small cake, but my birthday party was effectively canceled to avoid my brother having another meltdown. I told them I couldn't believe they were doing this to me, and they just seemed to shrug it off without a care. So at school over the next week, I told my friends, my teachers, and even my school counselor. All of them were appalled by my parents' lack of consideration or empathy. The vice principal even found out and consoled me. And all of this got back to my parents through social media. My parents ended up grounding and gaslighting me for telling so many people. But that didn't stop me from still telling everyone at school that I was grounded for just being upset my birthday was canceled for no good reason. I guess that made it a lot worse because several of my parents' own friends, along with parents to other kids in my school, called them up or sent them FB messages basically saying, "What the hell is wrong with you?" And suddenly I was ungrounded. I didn't get an apology either. My dad just walked into my room with his arms crossed, told me my grounding was over early, and then walked out. That was it. I thought my party was still canceled because nobody said anything about it. And my brother thought it hilarious and rubbed it in my face that I wasn't going to get to celebrate. But by the end of the 2 weeks, my parents held a surprise party for me at my favorite restaurant, and then started claiming that was their intent all along. I knew it wasn't. From what I'd seen, everyone was incredibly unhappy with them for what they did, and it showed with any interactions family members had with my parents. So they ended up doing the surprise party to try and save what little of their reputations they had left. But I'm pretty sure they had to pay through the nose that day to just accommodate me. I got dinner with all my friends at my favorite restaurant that had a small arcade, and even got the PS4 game system I'd been jonesing for at the time. I could tell it was all pretty much planned and bought last minute, because my dad had a look about him that my aunt comically described as looking like a moth had flown out of his wallet. My brother of course made a huge fuss that I got that surprise party. But with so many of my friends and their parents there, my mom and dad finally put their feet down on my brother to stop his tantrum when he wanted to push my cake off the table. My brother ended up getting a timeout for the first time since he was a toddler, and my mom had to stay with him to make sure he didn't do anything crazy. And he did try several times to run to the cake or stack of presents. Who knows what he would have done were it not for the fact at least one adult was always on guard. Even my dad stood guard to keep him away. My mom ended up having to remove my brother and her herself from the party entirely and took my little bro to a McDonald's nearby so he could have fun in their play area. And I heard later she spent at least an hour trying to get him to come out of the playplace tube structure. And he only did so because he had to use the bathroom, then tried to run right back in again. My parents never tried to cancel my birthday again while still I lived with them, though they never again tried as hard or spent as much. For the remaining 4 years I was under their roof. My birthday parties consisted of a local pizza parlor, a cake without even my name written on it, and never again anything as expensive as a new gaming system. I don't mean to sound spoiled, but I was a bit disappointed I never got a cake with my name on it again. My aunt called my parents out on that each year, and each year they claimed they forgot to get the cake decorated. I'm pretty sure that the reason my name was never written on another cake was because my brother always refused to eat pieces of cake that had writing of someone else's name on it at any party, and they couldn't put his name on any of my cakes, or it would have looked very bad for them. But the fact that I still got a day that was just about me at all and not my brother was still fantastic in my book, especially because just about everything else revolved around him. During each of my remaining birthday parties while still living at home, my brother made a fuss, and my mom took him somewhere else to calm him down. I was still required to share my PS4 with my brother, but it was still mine, and I took it with me when I moved out at 18. Little bro did not like that, and had a huge fit till my parents went out and bought another PS4 for him. When I moved out they finally had to deal with how they'd raised my brother so spoiled because I wasn't there to help them with him anymore. On his recent 14th birthday he went mental on our parents for not getting him a PS5. He is now currently grounded for I don't know how long after causing hundreds or maybe even thousands in collateral damage during his rampage. He picked up a chair and just started destroying anything that was in front of him with it. And my parents just looked mentally checked out when I saw them last. My aunt has also told me they confided in her that they wish they could send my brother to military or boarding school in the future because they can't handle the monster they created anymore. But there's no way they can afford that. I'd be lying if I said I didn't find it ironically funny. Update 1. My parents were thrown out of a child's birthday party because they asked the stupidest thing imaginable. For those who read my previous post about how my parents tried to cancel my 14th birthday, they knew very well what my brother was like during birthday parties that weren't his own, and they tried to enable his behavior in any way they could just because he's high-functioning autistic. Well, that rampant spoiling didn't go well with people outside of the family. Like it all. This happened I think when my brother was around 6 to 7 years old. A neighbor boy down the street was having his birthday party, and my brother got invited because they were sort of friends, but probably because they knew my parents would bring a gift. And they did. Don't remember what it was though, nor do I really care. My parents dragged me along to this party, even though I'd have rather stayed home and played video games. I was bored and sitting down almost the entire time, so I got to witness pretty much the whole situation. It started when my brother was caught picking up gifts off the table and shaking them. The mother of the birthday boy told him to stop, and my parents tried to defend my brother and say he was harmless. But the lady knew what my brother was really like and had my parents move him away from the presents. There were some games that the kids were playing. Don't remember what they were, but I do remember my brother tried to be the center of attention as much as possible. With each game the birthday boy got first pick/turn on them all because it was his birthday, but my brother freaked out because he didn't get to be first. And my parents did ask the birthday boy's mother if my brother could get the first pick/turns, and the lady not only refused, but told my parents to get my brother under control or we'd all be asked to leave. Then came time for the cake. The mother lit the candles for the birthday boy and the adults started singing the happy birthday song. They only got as far as singing the birthday boy's name in the song before my brother burst into a tantrum at the table. He grabbed the side of the table and started trying to violently shake it. My parents had to hold my brother back for a moment. And then I saw my mother go up and talk to the mother of the birthday boy again about something. And the poor lady looked positively disgusted. And I learned later that she'd asked her to let my brother blow out the candles first and then they could redo it. The lady told my mother that it would be best if we left, and then they went back to trying to redo the birthday song. Well, my brother couldn't take it and ran to the table and shoved the whole cake right at the birthday boy. I mean, he used his arm to literally clothesline the cake and heave it right into that poor kid's face. The whole room was silent for a few seconds, and then a bunch of the kids started laughing. Then the birthday boy started crying, and the adults were all mortified, except for my parents. My mother just started hugging my brother tightly and acting like a Karen by saying this could have been prevented if they'd just let my brother blow out the candles first. The mother of the birthday boy was cleaning up chocolate cake off her son and screamed at my parents to get out. The other kids there started crying because it had finally hit them that now there was no cake. My mother started dragging my brother out, but he broke free of her and then pushed over the table with all the presents on it. I grabbed him and held him in a headlock till my parents grabbed him. I apologized profusely to the mother of the birthday boy and said I wasn't on my parents' side in the matter. Yeah, that's right. Little 12-year-old me had to apologize for my own parents. My dad yelled to me to get moving or I could walk home. I said I'd walk home. It was literally a quarter-mile down the street. I stayed and helped clean up the mess my brother made. The lady thanked me and said that I was a good egg. But my brother was just rotten. Someone went out and got another cake while the birthday boy had to take a shower because he was covered in cake. All of the mess was cleaned up, and they redid the birthday song. After the party was over, the mother of the birthday boy wrote something out on a piece of paper. It was a handwritten invoice to my parents for the destroyed cake, along with a written threat to call police as someone there with a camera caught everything. I handed the invoice to my parents and they really didn't look happy when they read it. Then they gave me the cash and told me to take it back to the lady. So I did, and that was pretty much it. Neither that kid, or his family ever associated with my brother or my parents ever again. But the messed up thing is that at another birthday party months later, the same situation nearly repeated entirely. My mother asked the parents to let my brother blow out the candles first, gave BS excuses as to why, and they outright refused, and my mother acted like a total Karen. My brother tried to knock down the cake. I was on guard and intercepted him. Then we were told to leave. It was after that my brother was no longer invited to birthday parties that were not relatives. And then on my next birthday in that same year when I turned 13, my parents tried to get me to let my brother blow out my candles, and my aunt tore into them for that. It was then I guess that my parents decided that if I couldn't share, then next year I shouldn't have a party at all. And any previous readers know how that turned out. Update 2. My parents enabled my little brother's minibike mayhem. When I was 17, I bought a used minibike and used it to get to and from a part-time job. Those who've read my previous posts know what my little brother is like. The boy my parents extra coddled because he was diagnosed as high-functioning autistic. And anything I had, my brother had to have too. And if I refused to give it, my parents generally took it. At least until that behavior was exposed to the public when my parents tried to cancel my 14th birthday. After that my parents stopped forcing me to give my stuff to my brother whenever he wanted it. And that led to some extra huge tantrums from him. My brother would look for things around the house to throw to the floor and break. Usually dishes. My parents actually stocked up on plates from second-hand stores because of that. When I got the minibike, my brother was upset I would never let him ride it. But he's destructive with all his stuff. Every time he broke his BMX, I'm the one who had to fix it. Change a flat, new pedals, new tire, new handlebars, new brake line, etc. He's got a stunt BMX that he begged for, and my parents spent hundreds on it. But as much as he loves it, he never fixes it himself or properly takes care of it. Just calls me over begging me to fix it. My parents got him the parts and have the tools, but he never bothers to do anything more than pump up a tire. And even then he usually tries to get someone to do it for him. He's also very careless in where he leaves the bike. He left it in a neighbor's driveway and its handlebars got run over by the neighbor's van. He somehow destroyed the pedals and a new pair had to be put on. He broke the rear brake line while having a tantrum too. The tire was understandable though since those were out. But it wasn't hard to swap it, and I shouldn't have had to come over on a Saturday to do it when my brother is perfectly capable of doing it himself. So damn right I'm not letting him take my mini bike on a joyride, especially with gas prices being so high these days. The mini bike gets like 60 miles per gallon. So what that it only goes 40 miles per hour. I only have a 5-mile commute anyway. About a month before my brother's 14th birthday, my parents called me begging me to come over and fix the BMX again. Little bro had worn the rear tire down to its threads. I was annoyed, but I came over anyway because they offered to pay me. I swapped the tire, and sat down for a bottled water because it was like 100 degrees that day. My brother watched me work on the bike till I was done. His helmet was on, so I figured he was just waiting to go riding on his bike. But the moment my back was turned I heard my mini bike start up outside and then take off. Little bro took off like a rocket down the street on it before I could get out of the garage. I freaked out, but my parents tried to play it off. Though when I didn't placate them, they said they'd get my mini bike back right away. But for them that was more like just waiting till my brother came back with it. I was annoyed, and I wanted to call the police, but I'm not sure if they'd call it a domestic issue or not. My brother finally came back an hour later. He'd somehow not crashed, but the moment he saw me, he took off again. He drove the bike till it ran out of gas and my parents had to go get him. To say I was furious was an understatement, but my parents basically rolled their eyes, handed me $40 and claimed it wouldn't happen again. I said it better not, or I'd call the cops next time. Not sure if it'd help, but they seemed to take my warning. I had to push my mini bike to the nearest gas station to fill up before I could go home. Before I left I told my parents that if my brother wants a mini bike so bad, then they should get him one. But then they pulled a 180 and said he wasn't ready to have one because it's a big responsibility, and that it was too dangerous because it's practically a motorcycle. I mean really? They just let him steal mine for like 2 hours to go joyriding to God knows where, and they don't want to get him one themselves? Whatever. I'm used to their hypocrisy by now. The last time I went to my parents' house, my brother was massively grounded and in his room for his birthday rampage I mentioned in my first post. But just to be sure, I pulled the spark plug wire off my bike before I entered the house. My brother was glaring at me from his window when I left. I just gave him a goofy wave and drove off. Update 3. I suggested to my parents that they sell a bunch of my brother's stuff to get some of their money back for his rampage. They did not hesitate. But wait, there's more. Well, a while ago someone here commented the idea that my parents should sell a bunch of my brother's stuff. So I talked to my parents about how they could probably recoup some of their losses from the birthday rampage by selling a lot of my brother's stuff. I was surprised by how readily they agreed it was a good idea. I mean, it was like a light bulb moment for them. Then over the weekend they had a big garage sale. They sold my brother's bike, his video game systems, everything. I went to help out with the sale and could hear my brother crying in his room. All of the video game systems he had were sold. And I mean, there was a lot of them. He had a GameCube, a Wii, a 3DS, a Switch, PS2, PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and a ton of games for them all. And they sold all of them. I was pretty tempted to buy something from the sale myself, but I knew if my brother were to be made aware that I had something he used to own, who knows what he might do. So I held back. The bike alone went for $30. They also sold his TV, his RC cars, his drone, and pretty much anything else electronic he owned. They are in the process of selling his gaming PC online now as well. There's a cheap laptop too, but it was mainly used for school, and he was denied access to it for anything else. My parents told me that my brother's room had been stripped of everything but the essentials. While I was visiting during the sale, my brother walked out of his room once, saw me, and then ran back into his room crying loudly. I know fake crying from him when I hear it, and it was as fake as it gets. My parents know this too, and have not fallen for his game. I asked them if he was going to be sent to therapy, and they said they really have no choice but to that. And they fully admitted this was all their fault for enabling him for so long. I could have rubbed it in their faces, but I think the look they saw on my face was enough that they understood. For the past several years they've been in progressively worse and worse denial about their bad parenting. Friends and family have been telling them for a long time now that they went way too far spoiling my brother, and that not only would it come back on them one day, but it'd also mean that my brother may be incapable of functioning as an adult. And if that's the case, he'd expect someone to provide for his every need forever, and I would not become his caretaker when they become too old. My brother hadn't shown much improvement over the next few weeks. He was still being a brat, fake crying, getting into more trouble, and even stole another kid's cell phone at school. He was caught playing on it in his closet, and my parents had to return it to the school to find out who it belonged to. Last week I had an idea and suggested a family intervention. My parents were hesitant when I brought it up, but they reluctantly agreed to it. I'm sure their hesitation was because an intervention would put them on the spot along with my brother. Then on the next possible day all close family and some friends could gather at my parents' house. We formed a circle of chairs in the living room. Initially without my brother in the room. My aunt spoke first, and oh boy did she let them have it. She'd written an entire speech that we all silently listened to. My parents tried to interject from time to time, but were silenced. When it came to be my turn to speak, I also read a speech I composed, basically repeating everything I've told on Reddit thus far, and plenty more. My grandparents went next, and it just sort of followed down the line from there. My mother was in tears, and my father just held her. They both apologized to me heavily, and said they were terrible parents, and that they ruined my childhood. I'll never get that back. My aunt loudly stated that it should not have come to this for them to realize their own hypocrisy. And from now on they needed to do better, not only for my sake, but especially for the sake of my brother so he can grow up normal. My brother was brought into the room next, and he was seated away from my parents because my mother would have an urge to coddle him when he was upset. It didn't take long for the family to lay into my brother. He tried fighting us a lot, but when excuses like if only they just let me have my way were about all he could say, we all let him have it about how that's not how the world works. He tried getting help from our mother, but she refused to look at him. He started huffing and acting like he was hyperventilating, then intentionally fell to the floor. It's not the first time he's done this. My aunt just told him to stop milking it and get up. He screamed at her that we were all ruining his life, and he wishes we were all dead. My parents were horrified. My brother refused to get up off the floor and kept breathing heavily to pretend to have some sort of attack. So everyone just left him laying there while they each said their piece about why they were there to him. He screamed at random a few times, but didn't move from where he'd laid down. Eventually everyone started leaving, and my parents had to actually drag my brother back to his room because he refused to get up off the floor. He's not used to people having no sympathy for him, especially from our parents. This is gonna be a long uphill battle. My aunt has offered to chip in for therapy, and my parents have taken her up on it. Let's hope therapy does my brother some good. Edit. Context. Some have been asking what happened with my brother's birthday rampage. Well, to put it simply, he didn't get a PS5, so he went mental with a chair and destroyed whatever he could with it, which was finally the breaking point for my parents, and they grounded him severely. Update 4. My spoiled brat brother has finally been allowed some privileges, and he hates them since the family intervention. My parents have kept my brother in check, and they are doing okay in terms of making up for years of treating me like crap. They've even promised to host my next birthday, and have my favorite cake with my name on it. My brother did overhear this because my parents had from doing dishes in the kitchen, and he just stopped what he was doing and went right to his room. No fake crying, just a complete shutdown. He still glares at me from his window every time I leave when I come to visit. A little while ago my parents have allowed my brother some privileges for good behavior. Though to my brother they're basically the opposite of anything he'd like. My parents decided that he could have a little fun for good behavior. So my dad dug out his old N64 and Game Boy Color from the 90s. He still had most of his old games for both systems, and also had an old CRT TV to hook them up to. When they were offered to my brother, he just complained that they were old and boring. My dad just said he could suit himself then, and go back to reading. Took one night before my brother was begging to have the old 90s game systems. He used to have many game systems, a gaming PC, and even a gaming chair with Bluetooth speakers on it. Now all he has is a folding chair or his bed to sit on when gaming. I came by for a visit around the time he first got the N64 because my parents wanted to have me over for dinner, and I got to see my brother in his room yelling at the old CRT TV while playing Mario 64. He really wasn't happy, especially since he couldn't even go online to check for guides, walkthroughs, or cheat codes. For the Game Boy Color, I saw he had some Pokemon games, and at least one Donkey Kong. My dad has said that if my brother is extra good by the end of the summer, they'll upgrade him to a Game Boy Advance. My parents quickly realized though that the Game Boy Color would eat AA batteries, so my brother has to use a power cord for it now, and he does play it. Maybe because he used to have a phone in his hands playing app games so much. Because my brother likes cycling, but no longer owns a bike since our parents sold it. He was without an outlet to exercise. My dad found a used exercise bike on FB Marketplace and put it in my brother's room. He also got a used CD player mini boombox from somewhere the same day. So yeah, my brother just rides that exercise bike since he can't go outside unless it's to do chores. And he rides it aggressively. He tunes into whatever music gets him going, and then he rides that exercise bike hard. From the look on his face, I'd call it hate riding. Almost like what you'd expect to see on the face of a vindictive prison inmate exercising in their cell and waiting for the day they can get out and get revenge. I had mentioned this to my parents, and they have the same worries that I do. So my dad started burning CDs with my brother's favorite music that used to be on his gaming computer that they also sold. Each burned CD has 10 songs, and he would get one for every week of good behavior. He's only gotten one so far since this started. Not because of bad behavior, but because not enough time has gone by for him to get more. I'm not sure if I'd call my brother's behavior good. He's just not really being bad. I don't hear him complaining out loud anymore most of the time, but I see it in his face, especially when he glares at me from his window when I get on my mini bike to go home. He definitely resents me, but it's not the same look he gives our parents when they aren't looking. He glares at them like they destroyed his life. But if I were to put it into words, he glares at me with envy, like I have everything he wants. The look just seems to say just wait till I'm 18. I remember having those same thoughts when I wanted to move the hell out after high school, but I made sure I had life plans with the help of my aunt when I moved out. But my brother doesn't know anything about how to do that, so he's probably still thinking of it in the simplest ways a kid usually would. Oh great, now I'm sounding like a know-it-all. I have tried to talk with my brother, but he doesn't have much to say. I've been stopping by every few days to spend some time with him. We don't speak much because he's gotten very quiet, but he does seem to enjoy having someone to play with since our parents won't. He eagerly hands me a controller every time I'm there. We've mostly been playing racing games like Mario Kart on Dad's old N64 in my brother's room, and he gets pretty aggressive while playing. He keeps swinging the controller around wildly with nearly every move he makes, and has even shoved me over a few times when he was losing. I've learned to brace my legs so he can't do that. He had a few light tantrums for losing, but is getting a little better. I've had some GameFAQs walkthroughs and cheat codes of some of the games he's been playing on the old N64 printed out at the local library and put them in a binder for him, and that's made him be a little nicer to me. Our parents wanted to get some stuff for summer homeschooling for my brother, but I warned them that was probably not a good idea. He's already in an almost constant state of anger, and the goal is to mellow him out and make him more accepting life won't go his way like it used to anymore, not piss him off even more. My dad got angry with me about how he's the father and not me, and that sparked an argument where I reminded him of the things that went on over the past decade. All of the favoritism, all of how I was blamed for so much, even how I had to hide my money at my aunt's house because they kept letting my brother try to steal it. I didn't outright say he's a bad parent, but it was heavily implied. He backed off and my mom told him I was right, and trying to force home summer schooling on my brother will not help. That made my dad shut down and he went to drink alone in the living room. My mom has apologized to me repeatedly over her past actions. She says she blames herself because it was her idea to coddle my brother so much, and my dad just went along with it. She told me that back then she was never thinking ahead to what my brother would be like as an adult. She basically refused to admit he was going to grow up, so she just kept spoiling him to try and keep him her as baby. My parents have scheduled couples counseling, but it's gonna be a while before they get in due to the wait period. My dad is pretty obviously not looking forward to it. It's harder to make him admit wrongdoing than my mom. He caved and admitted how much he'd screwed up during the family intervention. But since then he's tried to act like he's just a normal parent. But I've made it clear that pretending that shit didn't happen won't make it go away. And my mom agrees with me. So that's where things are right now. Hopefully my next update will be better. Update 5. This is not an update I was hoping for. My mom was secretly letting my brother have other privileges back while my dad was at work because he kept begging her. Why? Because he's special. My dad was holding to keeping my brother accountable. But my mom just couldn't do it and started letting my brother have his way again behind everyone's backs. And my brother kept demanding more and more from her once she started giving him what he wanted again. My mom bought a used Switch with a copy of Zelda bought and let my brother play it in secret. And was letting him online with his laptop that was supposed to have been taken away unless needed for school work. My brother demanded mom replace some of the things they sold, and called her some horrible things when she said she couldn't because dad would notice. This repeated over the course of several days, and my brother started to get violent. And mom finally hit her breaking point. She outright slapped my brother across the face as hard as she could. And then had a complete mental breakdown where she resorted to self-harm. She ended up calling my dad to come home early, because she kept hurting herself. He rushed home and found my mom literally beating herself, and he had to make her stop. She's never done anything like this before. My brother was in total shock and freaking out about it. My dad blamed my brother and whooped his ass raw. He'd spanked me a few times when I was a kid, but I heard from dad later that he'd really wailed on my brother while calling him an ungrateful brat they did everything for. Then took away the Switch my mom had been hiding for him. My mom had to be taken into the ER, and then had to be held for a psyche evaluation. She was found to be so heavily stressed that her anxiety was through the roof, and had to be hospitalized. I saw a picture of my mom that my dad had taken before she was taken in for the psyche hold. She had 2 black eyes, and her face was swollen, and she'd ripped some of her own hair out. My dad implied she'd done more to herself, but I didn't see. However, my dad begged me to come over and watch my brother while they were away, because he was afraid my brother may do something insane too after everything that happened. When I showed up, I found my brother huddled in his closet and crying. He wouldn't say much to me, other than small apologies, and he jolted if I even so much as touched him. I ordered his favorite pizza on my dime and had it delivered. It's barbecue chicken with stuffed crust. It coaxed him out of his room and we ate dinner in awkward silence. I played Mario Kart on the N64 with him for a while after that, and he eventually broke down sobbing. He asked me how bad of a person he really was. I hesitated in saying anything at first, but I told him. I said it wasn't his fault for being raised spoiled because that was on our parents, but he is getting older and can't put all the blame on our parents anymore. I said he himself was entitled, violent, blames others for all of his faults, steals from people, and was in need of some serious counseling. My brother cried some more and asked me to leave the room. About an hour went by before he came out and we talked in the living room. My brother asked me what it was like being an adult. So I told him about the responsibilities I have in working a job, paying for gas, rent, utilities, etc., and how much I usually have left over each month for anything else. He was pretty shocked because no one had ever explained adult life to him like this, and I remarked that he'll be there soon enough in a few short years. My brother said he wished he didn't have to be an adult. He likes having his way and gaming all he wants, but then admitted that he knew I was going to say that was wrong, which I nodded and said he was correct. I remarked to him about how little I got compared to him growing up because he had to have everything, which is why I took lemons and made lemonade any way I could. Like how I hid my money at my aunt's house, and how I was afraid to keep nice things because he always wanted to take them away from me. This heart-to-heart lasted until we saw dad pull his car in. My brother bolted back to his room before dad came in the house. When I saw my dad, he really didn't look so good. He looked like he'd been crying, and was a complete mess. He apologized to me in tears and said he's finally truly starting to understand how awful of a parent he truly is, and couldn't believe he was blind to it for so long. We hugged, he cried some more, then he spilled his guts to me about everything that happened. I've never seen him cry so much. It's been well over a week now and nearing 2, and thus far my mom hasn't returned home yet. I'd hoped that if I waited this long to post about it, my mom would have come back. But wherever she is right now, she's still there. My dad won't say anything more about what's going on, but I think my mom might have been labeled a danger to herself, and has been institutionalized. Otherwise I think she would have been home by now. My brother has calmed down a lot, and he does the chores dad gives him without complaint. Dad also gave him back the Switch mom had bought for him, and said not to F things up this time, because if he wants all of his privileges back, he was gonna earn them one by one. Yesterday I talked with my brother over the phone while dad was still at work, and he says he's afraid of dad now, but also said that dad hasn't even so much as raised his voice to him since the day mom went mad. He admitted that he still wished things could go back to how they used to be. He misses all his electronics, his games, and his bike. I asked dad about the bike, and he said he'll get him another one in time. But for now he's just too worried about mom to even think about that kind of stuff. I'm kind of at a loss how to move forward here. Obviously I know that my family is messed up, and needs support in a variety of ways. I am starting to feel sorry for my brother, but at the same time I know that he needs this lesson to move forward in life. But I did not agree with dad spanking him the way he did. I haven't said that to him, nor do I think I ever will unless he does it again, which I'm not so sure he will since he regrets it immensely, and my brother is starting to understand how to behave. But I still feel really mixed up over the lot of this. I knew getting my family changed for the better would be drama, but I didn't think it would be at this level.
Story 3.
Mom forced me to break my wife's heart. Then my wife served me with divorce papers. I did everything to get her back, but my mother kept getting in my way. Last night was my wife and I's anniversary, and my mother forced me to miss it. You see, she begged me to come over to her house for an emergency, and when I got there, she demanded I clean the house and miss the anniversary to do so. And like the spineless coward that I am, I did. Hours later, I came back home to my wife handing me divorce papers. I was shocked and started breaking down. I asked her why, and she said that tonight was the final straw in a long list of things that I've always put my mother first. She said that she expected today of all days to be our one time together, but even my mom is able to intervene on our wedding anniversary. I asked her what I could do, and begged her to go to counseling. She is refusing. I asked her if there was someone else. She said that someone else is herself, and that it's time for her to start working on herself, and stop worrying about me being able to put my mother first. She has since moved into the guest bedroom in our house, and hasn't talked to me much this morning. I tried to kiss her on the way out to drop off our daughter before work, and she just moved out of my way. Update. I told my wife I'd give her space, but the conflict was eating at me. So yesterday when she got back from work, I knocked on the guest room door, and tried to get her to come down to the kitchen to talk to me, but she was still refusing to talk about all of this, until she was ready. I asked her when she'd be ready, and she just shut the door in my face. Well, late last night my mom showed up unannounced, which is unfortunately something she does, and my wife answered the door. I could hear my mom asking my wife how our anniversary was. My wife called for me to come down and handle my mom, her exact words, and my mom started interrogating her as to what handle means. By the time I got down there ready to defuse the situation, it was already too late. My wife had poked the bear and my mom was laying the verbal smackdown. I asked my wife what she said to my mom. Stupid, I know. And she just went up to the guest room and slammed the door. I finally realized what was going on and asked my mom to leave, but she was refusing. I had to threaten to call the police, and then she finally left. Then this morning my wife packed her bags, a bag for my daughter, and left for her parents' house. I was surprised that she didn't even tell me beforehand. I was able to stop her and ask her what was going on, as she was headed out of the door, and she said she's had enough of the verbal abuse, that she's ready to find a partner that will stick up for her and her family. She said that Elle will always put my mother first, and last night was an example of that this relationship cannot be salvaged, and she will be seeing a divorce lawyer ASAP. As a last-ditch effort I asked her what I could do to fix this. She just shook her head at me, and then she left. I'm a mess. I've lost everything meaningful to me within the span of 48 hours. I keep calling and texting her and getting no response back. I called one of my buddies to tell him what went down, and he's on his way now. When I told him what had all happened, his reaction was a mix of shocked and congratulations. You played yourself. He called me denser than a block of bricks. I told him that I still have some hope that this relationship can last, and he laughed and said I need to put that idea to rest. Update 2: my wife has officially collected all of her things, and my daughter's things, and moved back in with her parents. I did the dumbest move ever, and stayed with my mom for a few days to collect my thoughts. It was dumb on a lot of levels, but I finally saw firsthand the abuse that my wife was receiving, because now it was directed entirely at me. She also did some really weird things like try to snuggle me to sleep. One night I woke up and she was snuggling me. I had to tell her to get back to her own bed. I realized how counterintuitive it was for me to be there, so I moved out one morning when she was sleeping, and came back to my home. I then officially blocked my mother on everything, and invested in a small home security system for my house. She's tried to show up a few times, but I've locked all of our gates, and she does not have a key. I also rekeyed the doors in our home just in case. I've had 2 therapy sessions, and I stupidly thought it would be just a one and done type thing. In my first one, I was given some really good advice, and was told that if I'm just here to save my marriage, then I look elsewhere, because I also need a lot of work. That really got me thinking. My therapist is fantastic too. As for my marriage, I don't know what's next. We are going through a trial separation at the moment, and she hasn't spoken to me much except to talk about our daughter. I'm also realizing that I may have been a bad husband, but I can still be a good father to my daughter. My mother decided to send snail mail to both me and my wife. The return address was my mother's house, and the handwriting was hers. My wife and I decided to meet up to discuss the letters, and she and I both received different ones. Mine was mostly, "Come home to mama" type crap, but my wife's letter came in a large envelope that was mostly unmarked. No postage on it. and no evidence of it going through the post office, so she must have dropped it off herself. My wife is staying with her parents, and my mom knows the address through family gatherings, holidays, etc., but the handwriting matched, and she still wrote a return address on it. The letter itself included information about how my mom was thinking of pursuing grandparents' rights, but if that's not far enough, she'll have to get creative in order to spend time with our daughter. As for the grandparents' rights thing, my daughter is too young to have any type of serious relationship with my mom, but she has watched her on some occasions. My wife refused to let my mom have unsupervised visits when we were still together, but she would have some supervised play. For the creative thing, I'm not entirely sure what to think. It doesn't sound like a total threat to me, but it does sound super ominous. My wife is freaked out. I let her know that I'd support her in any way possible, but we honestly don't know where to go from here. Restraining order, cease and desist letter. Update 4. I've blocked my mom on all communication, and so has my wife. We can also confidently say we've got everything on lock from my in-laws' house to our pediatrician to my daughter's social security number. As for the threat, we are following through with the legal proceedings with a lawyer following my mother's threat. But my wife, daughter and I are doing okay, and just taking it day by day, I guess. At the moment, I'm preparing for the worst for my mom. This morning she attempted to see my wife at work, literally just showed up and asked to see my wife. When my wife's secretary refused, my mother demanded to see her, and it got bad enough that they threatened to call the police. We are documenting everything, and also looking into moving too. The space for my mother would be good. I'm worried she will come to my work next, but I have told my boss about the situation, and he's pretty understanding. Update 5. Here's my next question. My mom hasn't always acted intimate towards me, but my therapist has picked up on a few red flags that started after I turned 21. The first one being the fact that my mom was snuggling me in bed when I moved in with her for a short amount of time. The second is that she can be touchy-feely with me in a way that I used to think was normal mothersome love, but now I know is weird. Playing with my hair, excessively kissing my cheeks. You get the point. One time she pinched my behind when she came and visited my daughter, and told me to give her a piece of that sugar. At our wedding, she wore an extremely revealing dress, and tried to get me to dance suggestively with her on the dance floor. I thankfully realized what was going on and did not go for it. And she did something not too long ago that takes the cake. While I was at work, I got an email from someone I didn't recognize, and it got tagged as an external server. We use Outlook, which isn't unusual since sometimes people will email and call to ask about our services. Plus, the subject line of the email said, inquiry, and I could see a bit of the body copy asking about the types of services we offer. Well, to my surprise, this was a bait and switch. I opened the email to see the body copy, but underneath of it there were about 4 pictures of her, topless, with a caption under each of them that said, "Where's my sweet boy?" This was definitely an email from her. I don't get sick often, but I started shaking and then had to go to the bathroom to throw up. Why on earth would she think this was acceptable is something I'll never figure out. But it began to register to me that she had just sent me a topless photo through my work computer, and also through my work's internet. I'm thinking this was likely done on purpose to get me in trouble. Anyway, I forwarded the email directly to our lawyer, and blocked the new email address from my work and personal email. I then went to talk to my boss about it. He knows about my mom and her antics, and he said that he received an email from the same address regarding me being unprofessional on site a few days ago. So yeah, I think this is a setup. My boss thankfully is understanding of the situation, or I guess as understanding as a boss could be, and just deleted the email from my mom and let me get back to work. Update 6. So my mother showed up at my house in a frenzy, unannounced and screaming, crying for me and saying how she just needs me. She's crying and banging on our front gate demanding to speak to me. If this were the old me, I would have let her in. And to be honest, I almost did, but the new me decided to call the police. When they came, the police immediately told her to leave our property. It took a few moments, but then she finally left. I don't feel good about this. She's my mom. I feel obligated to speak to her, but she has also been so terrible to me and my wife. I'm going to try to go to sleep and do my best, but I've got a lot of thinking to do, and maybe some more to share with my therapist. Update 7. My mother drove to our house one evening and had a psychotic break in front of our home that involved self-harm. It was enough for us to call the police again, and she is now spending time at a mental facility. With grandparents' rights not really on the horizon anymore, my wife has approached me and said she still wants the trial separation and the divorce. She feels like these last 2 months or so, we have been playing house, in order to keep up a good look, in case my mother decided to pull something, and that she's put up with the crazy for too long. This is starting to impact her own mental health, so she has moved herself and our daughter back in with her parents for the time being, and wants to speak about our options with our lawyer on Monday. So I guess we will start that process soon. I can't say I'm not disappointed, but I also can't blame her. I asked her if all of the bad really outweighed the good, and she gave me the most stern look and said, "Our relationship has been almost nothing but bad," and walked away. Update 8: I've learned that the psychotic woman in the mental facility views me as her husband, and at times it has unfortunately crossed over into her actually wanting to get physical with me. This is the first time I've actually written it out or said it out loud, besides with my therapist. Coming to terms that you've been taken advantage of by you-know-who does not feel great. I don't know how long it'll take me to work through these feelings, but please know I am working on them. I've learned that my mom has very likely never properly grieved the death of my father. I've learned that almost every girlfriend I've had, including my wife, has never been good enough for my mom, because only she believes that she's good enough for me. I've learned that years of mental and emotional manipulation on my mom's side has gotten me here. Up until I had my first reality check, I really did believe all of this was annoying, but normal and just how she is. I still feel slightly guilty over everything that has happened, but my guilt has turned into anger. I feel like I've been robbed of a normal life. However, being in therapy has opened my eyes to what can happen next though. I'm only in my 30s, I still have time to live a great life and be a great dad to my daughter. Update 9: My wife and I decided to go through with the trial separation. She and our daughter are at her parents' house for the time being, while I am at our home. It's the most awful feeling, and I've never been this empty before. Divorce is coming. I guess I should start calling her my ex-wife. I'm continuing with counseling so I can work through not just my personal feelings, but also what next steps are going to be. I've always wanted to move out of state and maybe try out a new career, but I don't want to be far from my daughter. We'll see how it goes. Update 10: I guess I should have seen it coming, but I almost wish she hadn't told me. She's seeing other people. She said that it was more of a heads up in case I see her out and about on a weekend or something. We're separated, so it's not against the rules for her to date or anything. And we're in a no-fault state for the divorce that's inevitably coming our way. I'm not in a place emotionally where I'm ready to date. I'm not even close. But hearing that she'll be meeting up with an old flame for dinner next weekend rocked me to my core. It means I really can't get her back. I did try one last time, and it did not go well. She said she's done with coming second to my mother, and now second to the drama that's been going on in our lives, and that she doesn't want to raise our daughter in an unhealthy environment.
Story 4.
Parents kicked me out at 18. Now 10 years later they lost everything. I'm 30 male, and my parents didn't really want kids. I was an only child, and pretty much an accidental pregnancy from what relatives have told me, as my parents claimed that they were going to be child-free when they married. My childhood was initially good, but I think after I started growing out of the cute and adorable phase, my parents were less inclined to spend time with me. They both worked, and had their own business that they started together. That business was their life, and I was always second fiddle to it. Any other close members of family like my grandparents lived states away, and I barely knew anything about them till I was an adult. So I had no other family around my entire childhood. I was practically raised by TV and my school teachers. My own birthdays by the time I became a teenager were often spent without my parents, as they just give me some money and tell me to go out and buy whatever I wanted. It was more or less the same with Christmas, and sometimes even back to school shopping. We wouldn't have even had a Christmas tree after I turned 10 if it weren't for the fact I convinced my parents to buy a fake one I could build up and then take apart later every year. If I were to describe my parents, think of them as those people who always wear black, drink lots of wine, and look down their noses at people. And the last I saw of my parents, they still looked and acted the same way. Although my father was always wearing a toupee now. When I turned 16 I asked my parents if I could work part-time for them at their business, and they just told me they had no open positions or anything like that. They may as well have just come right out and said they didn't want me there. After I turned 18 my parents told me that since I was an adult, they expected me to move out as soon as I was able. I was working part-time because I was still in high school, and I didn't have anywhere near enough saved for college. And not long after high school ended my parents told me to pack up and move out. They got an official eviction notice that gave me 30 days and everything. They didn't even help me move. I had to get help from a friend's dad who owns a truck. I ended up renting a crappy apartment and working retail. I had no real life experience and no time for college. Then after just a few months I got fired because my manager legitimately had it out for me and wrote me up for the stupidest things. I don't even remember what they were anymore, but I wasn't the only one the manager treated that way. I called corporate about it and so did a few other people. Corporate looked into the manager, and they were soon fired for various reasons. Not many of which I actually know since it was mostly kept quiet, but someone told me theft of cigarettes was a part of it, and the manager was a chain smoker. Corporate refused to rehire me and only said that they'd change the record to say I was laid off instead of terminated so my resume would still be clean. Guess they considered me damaged goods or something. I ended up going broke pretty fast because I was terrible at managing my own money and couldn't find steady employment. So I lost my apartment. I went back to my parents begging for help, but they refused to take me in, not even for a little while to get back on my feet. I ended up homeless and living out of a tent in someone's backyard. In winter, my friends had all moved on to college, some in other states, and I was a broke kid taking whatever work I could to stay alive. My salvation came when one of the neighbors of my parents found out I was living out of a tent and offered to take me in for a little while so I wouldn't freeze. She helped me badger my parents into telling me how to get in touch with the other members of my estranged family. My parents did not want to say. My guess is out of fear of being judged for throwing their son out the way they did, but they coughed up the info and gave me a list of contact details, and then told me not to bother them ever again. I called my grandparents from my father's side of the family, and they were very surprised and happy to hear from me because they hadn't seen me since I was an infant, and I'm their only grandchild. My grandparents, after finding out my situation, flew me over to live with them as soon as they could. They basically adopted me. My parents didn't even see me off at the airport despite being invited to. I had zero contact with them for pretty much a decade. My grandparents said they despised my parents for treating me so poorly, and legally disowned them by striking them from their wills. My parents, I'm told, were not happy to hear that, but also said it didn't really matter because they were plenty well off and didn't need anything from my grandparents. How wrong that statement turned out to be. After about a year of living with my grandparents, I was able to afford to start going to community college. I got an associate's degree, got a decent job thanks to a recommendation from my grandpa, and eventually my grandparents offered to sell me their house so they could retire to Arizona. My grandma wanted to live in a warmer climate as the cold winter was getting harder and harder on her health every year. I was sad to see them go, but I happily bought the house. They sold it to me for 1/3 its value, and I'll have it paid off in a few more years. My job is me going away on the road periodically, so I can end up away from home for weeks at a time. Not that I mind the travel. I have no pets or a girlfriend, or anything like that. I wouldn't have time for them right now, but in a few years when I have some things in order I'll make time. I don't want to stay a lonely bachelor forever. Then one day in late 2020 I came home after being away for over 2 weeks, only to find a large white van I did not recognize in my driveway. I was getting ready to call police when I noticed the van had the logo from my parents' business on the side of it, and I felt dread. Yes, my parents were there. They'd broken in somehow and were living out of my home, and they had the nerve to greet me like we were buddy the moment I walked in. I told them to get the hell out, and they refused because it was Grandma and Grandpa's house. I said it wasn't their house anymore. They'd sold it to me when they retired. They'd have known that if they were in any way involved with my life, but they threw me to the wolves 10 years prior with no life experience. We argued and they refused to leave. My father told me it was his parents' house first, and that meant he and my mother had the right to live there if they wanted. I walked right into my bedroom, locked the door and called the police. When the cops showed up they were of no help. My parents claimed to them that they had already been there long enough to have residency, which was a complete lie, but I had no cameras to prove they weren't there a month. My neighbors had no cameras either, so it was my word against my parents over how long they'd really been there, and they were claiming squatters' rights. They told police they had a verbal rental agreement with me, and that I was trying to illegally evict them for no reason. My mother even put on the waterworks when saying that. The police told me it was a family dispute, and to file eviction with the courts to get them out, and this was in 2020. Getting to court for anything took longer because of the pandemic. Meanwhile, my parents are squatting in my house rent-free and rubbing it in my face. From the information I got out of them, their business went bankrupt and they sold off almost everything they had to pay their debts. All they had left was the van and a few personal belongings. So they expected to live in my house rent-free for the foreseeable future. They were working too. Both of them soon got new jobs. My father as a delivery driver, my mother as a sales associate. They were making money, and the only things they contributed to was electricity and water utilities, which was basically just handing me a $100 bill every month and saying I should be grateful they were paying me anything. Anytime I tried to discuss proper rent with them, they just said I owed it to them to live rent-free because I took 18 years of their lives, and it's not like they were demanding the money back for that time. Then threatened to stop helping with the utilities altogether. I was so at my wit's end that I ended up calling my grandparents to explain the situation to them. They were very unhappy, and spoke with my parents, but my parents still said they had the right to stay in my home, and refused to budge. My grandpa told me he was sorry it had come to this, and that if they hadn't sold me the house, my parents wouldn't have invaded. I told him not to worry. I'd already filed for a legal eviction, and would get it soon enough. And my parents already knew that they were on borrowed time. I made sure to say that in earshot of my parents too. They responded with the silent treatment. My father was away most of the time driving a delivery vehicle 6 days a week, which was a job really not to his liking. And my mother basically tried to take over my house in her spare time. She demanded I let her rearrange my living room, and even tried to force me to give her and my father the master bedroom, because they were my parents, and they deserved better, as she put it. I vetoed both of those things and said they don't deserve better, and to stop trying to act like I owe them anything. I didn't ask to be born, and it's a normal obligation for parents to raise their own children. And all they were doing was trying to assert dominance to try and keep me from kicking them out. Finally, after 4 months and now into early 2021, I managed to take my parents to court over their squatting. We only needed to go to court because they fought the eviction and tried to gaslight me into rescinding it. They tried to use the fact it was formerly my grandparents' house, and the fact that they were giving me $100 a month as some sort of leverage of residency. But there was no real rental agreement, and they were smart enough not to try and forge one, as that would have been fraud. So the judge ordered that they needed to be out in a maximum of 30 days because they have zero claim on my house. After court, they confronted me and said they were disappointed in me for kicking out my own flesh and blood. I couldn't help but laugh and called them hypocrites because that's exactly what they did to me without a care in the world for my well-being. They had no love for me, so I have no love for them. I owed them nothing. They just tried to act like everything that was mine is theirs. But they had no right to call themselves my parents because they've never really acted like it. I called them a pair of snobby lying narcissists to their faces and told them to get their affairs in order, because they already know I won't hesitate to call police if they don't leave my house when the 30 days are over. My father looked enraged, but my mother stopped him from saying or doing anything by grabbing his shoulder and shaking her head. He sneered at me and walked away. They left, but not without a lot of tension. That final month was spent with them either guilting me to try and make me change my mind, or completely ignoring me. I put up a calendar in the living room and checked off each day before they had to leave with a red marker, and the exact day they were to be out was marked with a big red circle. I still remember that final day was March 2nd. My parents waited until the exact day they had to leave my home for good before they finally left, even when all their stuff was out of the house and they were sleeping on the floor in the guest room for a few days. Since they were so convinced they could make me let them stay, they didn't bother to try and look for an apartment until after the court eviction went through, and my mother spent weeks scrambling to find an apartment. They had to get a tiny and crappy studio apartment in the next city over because it was the only thing they could find on such short notice. A lot like what I had to do when I was 18. Quite ironic. I drove my mother over to see it once, and the apartment was terrible. The walls were baby barf green, the carpet looked like it was 20 years old, the only window just had a view of a brick wall outside. There was no dishwasher, the stove was the smallest one I'd ever seen, and the toilet looked like it really needed to be replaced. The walls also did little to stop noise from neighbors. There was already 2 people loudly fighting in the adjacent apartment while we were there. My mother went out of her way to try and give me sad looks while dropping hints that I should be feeling guilty that I was reducing them to live in such a place, but I just acted oblivious to it all until she finally stopped. They signed the lease right away and moved what little stuff they had into the apartment over the weekend. They also ended up demanding the queen-size bed, dresser and flat-screen TV from my guest room. I told them to just take the damn things because I no longer wanted them in the house after they spent 5 months sleeping in that room. They looked at me like I was treating them as though they were diseased and demanded nothing more. The moment they had to leave for good, I started changing the locks on all exterior doors. All their stuff was at the apartment, and they'd spent their last night in my guest room. They watched me start ripping the old lock off the front door as they were getting into the van. They said nothing, I said nothing, but they just sat and watched me for a while until I had the new doorknob on. Then they finally left. I breathed a massive sigh of relief the second that van went down the road. I figured karma had finally come for them, and they could live under a rock for all I cared. But nope, my grandparents heard from them recently. They'd called them to brag that had a new business similar to their old one in the same state as I'm living in now, and they are basically on track to be right back to where they used to be in life prior to the pandemic, which was making good money and looking down on others. I've already Googled their new business, and it seems like it's doing well. They have many positive reviews and everything. I'm pretty friggin' resentful, truth be told. They put me through being homeless, squatted for next to free at my house for months, then went right back to being the snobby wine-drinking business people they used to be. If karma is real, it's taking too damn long. Edit. I would like to thank everyone for all the constructive advice, and many of the points that are being made on selling the house I'm realizing have merit. I've asked my grandparents if it'd be a good idea if I moved closer to them. They told me that if I want to sell the house, then to go right ahead. My parents will have no clue where I am if I move away, so I'm heavily considering it now. I'm gonna see if the company I work for can transfer me down south. I think I wouldn't mind the warmer climate anyway. I've hated winter since the time I had to live in a tent. I don't have many friends where I currently am as I'm kind of a loner, so it wouldn't be too hard to start over somewhere farther away. I'm attached to this house, but it's not like I grew up in it, so I will consider moving. Yes, I understand the need for more cameras, and we'll be looking into that. As for those wondering how my parents broke in and fooled police, well, it's stupidly simple. My parents got in through a window I forgot to lock. They just pulled the screen off and opened it to get right in. Then they found my spare house keys I kept hanging on a hook near the kitchen and copied them. When claiming squatters' rights to police as well as saying we had a prior verbal agreement, my parents presented working house keys to the cops and lied their little asses off saying I'd let them move in. My parents had also already filed for an address change with the DMV online before I'd even gotten home. and showed police a printout of that they'd made, and said that their new IDs with my address were soon to be in the mail. The cops just looked annoyed, told me it was a domestic issue, and to file to evict them like a normal person. I wish I'd gotten their badge numbers to report them. Small addition. Yes, my parents had their mail redirected to my house, which is another thing they used to claim residency. The thing is that if they'd lived in my house for more than 30 days with permission, squatters' rights would make them tenants. They claimed they had my permission and used every dirty trick at their disposal to convince police they had the right to be there. There was no way for them to confirm or deny how long my parents had been living in the house, and it turned into a situation of everybody pointing fingers and police didn't know who to believe. That's why I had to go to court to evict them. I did refuse to give my parents the Wi-Fi password while they lived with me though, since they were not contributing to that utility. However, they just used their smartphones to run a mobile hotspot and got internet that way the whole time they were squatting in my house. Those of you saying that I should leave bad reviews or expose my parents' past, there really is no point. I'm gonna take the high road there and just forget about them. However, if they committed fraud to start that new business of theirs, then I'll get some popcorn when it comes back on them, because they'd inevitably call someone for help. Edit 2. For those who don't believe the 30-day thing with squatters, here's a direct USA law on the matter. In most areas, anyone who lives on your property for more than 30 days with permission can claim rights as in the eyes of the law they become your tenants. When this happens, you will usually need to carry out an eviction procedure. However, in the case where permission was never given and an unoccupied property is forcibly entered and lived in, there are still rules you must follow. My parents falsified permission and lied about how long they'd been in my house. That's why it took 5 months to get rid of them. Now you know. Update. Well, I decided to make some inquiries and spent a couple of days asking around the family about how my parents got their new business off the ground. It's pretty unusual that they were able to come back from bankruptcy and get a new business started in under 2 years. No, it's not an MLM for those who thought so. Even my parents wouldn't resort to doing that crap. They undoubtedly think MLMs are beneath them. My parents' new business is comparatively smaller than their previous one too. I'd say about half the size. Before they had at least 2 employees. Now it's just the 2 of them. Someone pointed out I should be watching my credit for identity theft. I already was and have been since I first started dealing with my parents squatting in my house. I put nothing past them, and they knew it. Honestly though, I'm not sure they even bothered to remember my legal information in the past decade anyway. Hell, I'm not sure they bothered to even remember how to spell my first name, but I did lock down my credit, and there has been no unusual activity on it at all. So my parents didn't try to steal their company funds from me at least. My paternal grandparents, or my good grandparents one would say, are the ones who actually give a damn about me. And they have no idea where my parents got their money to open up shop again. My parents have called them numerous times since they disinherited my father, and they have been refusing to take their calls since they called to brag about their new success a while ago. It's clear my parents had no help from my father's side of the family. So then what about my mother's? Well, I still had that old list of contacts my parents gave me filed away, and on that list was the landline number for my maternal grandmother. I did try calling my maternal grandmother back when I was homeless. She did not give a damn. I've never met them in person, but my maternal grandparents are a lot like my parents. Guess my father truly found his soulmate with my mother. As a previous commenter pointed out, they were made for each other. I managed to get in touch with my maternal grandmother once again, and not only was she long divorced from her husband, my maternal grandfather is no longer alive. That was news to me, but he passed away 7 months ago, and he left my mother a sizable inheritance. So yeah, that's where they got the money to open up shop again. My maternal grandmother sounded so proud of them too. She had little interest in speaking of much else, and it's likely why my parents called my grandparents to brag about how they are so successful again. They wanted to rub salt in the wound since my good grandparents cut them off. I really don't care though, and neither do my good grandparents. Everyone on my paternal side of the family all say my parents can go kick rocks. They want nothing to do with them. I'm not the only one my parents have jaded. My mother's side of the family are full of divorcees and drunken loners who all hate each other and just pretend to act civil. My father's side are what I'd call just very normal and nice people. My father though burned bridges time and time again. When I was born my grandparents wanted to be in my life, but for some reason my parents kept me from them. Why they did this I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's because they didn't want to be judged on their own parenting. I'd have been happier if they'd sent me to boarding school, or to live with my grandparents, but I guess narcissists aren't truly happy if they don't have someone else to put down. I can only imagine the stuff they said about me behind my back my entire life. Either way it seems my parents did nothing illegal to open up a new business. Nothing that can be reported to something like the IRS anyway. No law against using funds from inheritance as seed money to self-employment. My mother, like me, was an only child, so she got everything when her father died, including his house and land. That's where my parents are living now. I've seen a photo my maternal grandmother sent me. Not the nicest house, but not bad. Comparable to my own I'd say, but it means my parents have a place to live scot-free now, and likely won't need to bother me again. I want to sell my house and move, but it turns out the company that I'm in the employ of has no branch in Arizona. So it's either I quit and look for new employment in Arizona after selling my house, or I just stay where I am and hope my parents leave me alone. I'm looking into job searching, because I really don't want my parents to ever find me again. I won't move if it's not feasible, but I'd prefer to be able to. It'd be moot to bother getting more cameras for the house if I want to sell it ASAP. But if I end up stuck here because of not being able to find another job in Arizona in the coming months, then I might as well get cameras installed inside and out. I've gotten a lot of good advice on the kinds of cameras to get, and where to put them. I kind of doubt the same situation will ever repeat, but I just don't want my parents to ever try to seek me out again for any reason. If they need help when they're old, I'm not gonna care. They'll get what they gave, nothing. They're dead to me for the rest of my life. And the rest of my father's side of the family say the same. If I ever become a parent or step-parent, I'll make damn sure I never become like my parents.
If you enjoyed these parenting stories and still need something to listen to, you should check out these cheating spouse stories. Just click this thumbnail right here, and thanks for watching.